The horizon drifted through the tunnel of light for what felt like hours. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the smooth walls slide past. The tunnel was so large that their ship seemed like a toy inside it. "Captain," Lisa Martinez called. From her station, "We're slowing down. I think we're approaching something." The tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Jake had never seen anything so large. The space was big enough to hold 100 cities. The walls curved away into darkness, and strange lights floated in the air like stars. Other ships hung motionless. In the chamber, dozens of them. They were all different shapes and sizes, but they all looked dead. "Those are alien ships," Paul Kim whispered. "Look at the designs." Nothing like human technology. Amy Stone checked her weapons. "Captain, those ships aren't moving. No energy readings. They might be destroyed." The horizon came to a stop near the center of the chamber. As they watched, a platform rose from the floor below them. On the platform stood a creature unlike anything Jake had ever imagined it was. Tall, maybe 8 feet, and made of what looked like living crystal. Its body was transparent, with light flowing through it like water. It had no face that Jake could recognize, but somehow he knew it was looking at them. "I am Ambassador Zix," the creature said. Its voice came through their speakers just like before. "I speak for the Galactic Council. You are the first humans to reach this place." "What is this place?" Jake asked. "This is the testing chamber. Every species that achieves star travel must come here. Every race must prove they are worthy to join the galactic community." Paul studied his instruments. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy sources throughout this structure. This isn't just a building. It's a machine. What kind of test?" Jake asked the alien. Ambassador Zix moved closer to their ship. Despite being made of crystal, it walked smoothly across the platform. "The test is simple. You must survive 3 challenges. Each challenge tests a different aspect of your species: physical strength, mental ability, and moral character. And if we fail," the crystal being gestured toward the dead ships floating in the chamber, "then you join the others who are not worthy." Amy stepped forward. "Captain, this is clearly a trap. We should leave while we can." But Jake was studying the alien ships more carefully. There were so many of them. Different designs, different technologies, all silent and dark. "How many species have taken this test?" he asked. "Thousands. Over many millions of years. And how many have passed?" Ambassador Zix was quiet for a long moment. "Very few. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Only the strongest and wisest species can be trusted with the knowledge of star travel." Lisa checked her communications equipment. "Captain, I'm detecting faint signals from some of those ships. I think there might be survivors on board." "Survivors?" Jake felt a chill. "You mean the crews are still alive?" "Some of them. The ships are damaged but not destroyed. It's like they were disabled and left here." Ambassador Zix's light pulsed brighter. "The crews of failed ships are kept alive to serve the Council. They provide useful knowledge about their species and their technology." Amy's hand moved to her. "Weapon controls. They're slaves. They're servants." "There's a difference." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. This wasn't a test. This was a trap designed to capture new species and steal their knowledge. But he kept his voice calm. "What are the 3 challenges?" "The first challenge tests your physical capabilities. You must survive in combat against our guardian creatures. The second challenge tests your mental abilities. You must solve puzzles that have defeated many species. The third challenge tests your moral character. You must make choices that reveal your true nature. And if we pass all 3, then you will be welcomed into the galactic community. You will learn the secrets of advanced technology. You will join the Council as equal partners." Paul was studying the readings from the alien ships. "Captain, these ships show signs of advance technology, much more advanced than ours. But they all failed the test." Jake thought about what that meant. If species with better technology than humans have failed, what chance did his crew have? We need time to prepare, Jake said. Time is not unlimited. The test begins in 1 hour. You may use your ship's facilities to ready yourselves. The crystal being walked back to the center of its platform. Choose your champions. The first challenge requires 5 members of your crew to fight our guardians. Choose wisely. Jake called his senior staff together in the ship's conference room. Besides Amy, Paul, and Lisa, there were 2 other department heads. Chief Engineer Mark Brady and Medical Officer Dr. Susan Clark. This is clearly a trap, Amy said immediately. They're not testing worthiness. They're collecting species to enslave. But we're already inside, Paul pointed out. We have to play. They're game now. Do we? Susan asked. Maybe we can find another way out. Jake studied the faces around the table. These were good people, smart people. They didn't deserve to die in some alien trap. Paul, what did you learn from scanning those other ships? They're from different time periods. Some of them are very old, maybe thousands of years. Others are more recent. The technology varies widely, but they all have one thing in common. What? They all have weapons, advanced weapons, much better than ours. But they still failed. Lisa spoke up. I managed to intercept some communications between the ships. The crews that are still alive are trying to warn us. Warn us about what? The challenges. Aren't fair. They're designed to be impossible. The Council doesn't want new members. They want to eliminate potential threats. Amy leaned forward. So what do? Jake was quiet for a moment. He thought about Earth, so far away. He thought about the 43 people on his ship. He thought about humanity's long struggle to reach the stars. We take the test, he said finally. Captain, Amy protested. It's suicide. Maybe. But we didn't come this far to give up at the first sign of trouble. If other species with better technology failed, maybe they failed because they approached it wrong. What do you mean? I mean, maybe being the most advanced species isn't what matters. Maybe there's something else. Something the Council doesn't understand about humans. Paul looked interested. What kind of something? Jake stood up. I don't know yet, but I know one thing. Humans don't give up. We never have. Even when the odds are impossible, we keep fighting. Captain, Susan said quietly, the other species probably thought the same thing. Maybe, but they're not human. Jake looked around the table. Amy, I want you to pick 4 volunteers for the first challenge. People who can fight and think under pressure. Paul, study everything you can about the other ships. Learn from there. Failures. Lisa, keep monitoring communications. If the other crews are trying to help us, we need to listen. What about you, Captain? Amy asked. I'm going to be one of the 5 fighters. If we're going to do this, I'm not sending my people into danger alone. Amy nodded. I'll go too. And I have some ideas about who else should join us. Good. We have 45 minutes to prepare. Jake stood up. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for all of humanity. Everything we've learned, everything we built, everything we hope to become. It all depends on what we do in the next few hours. As the meeting broke up, Jake stayed behind for a moment. Through the conference room window, he could see the dead alien ships floating in the vast chamber. So many species had come here full of hope, only to fail and become slaves. But Jake Morrison was human. And humans have one quality that might make all the difference. They never knew when to quit. The test was about to begin. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the stars through the main window. 3 years had passed since they left Earth. 3 long years of empty space and distant suns. The ship hummed quietly around him as it moved through the dark between worlds. Captain, we're getting close to the Proxima system, said Lisa Martinez from her station. She was the communications officer, a small woman with quick fingers and sharp eyes. Should I start the deep scans? Jake, nodded. Do it. Let's see what's out there. The Horizon was humanity's first real starship. Not just a rocket that could reach the moon or Mars, but a true ship of the void. It had taken 50 years to build after the breakthrough in fusion drive technology. Now it carried a crew of 43 people farther from home than any human had ever gone. Dr. Paul Kim looked up from his science station. He was young for a chief science officer, but his mind was sharp as a blade. Captain, I'm seeing something strange. There's an energy reading near the third planet. It's not natural. Jake walked over to Paul's station. The screen showed a mass of numbers and lines that meant nothing to him, but Paul's face was excited. What kind of energy? I don't know. It's like nothing I've ever seen. The pattern is too regular to be natural. Too complex to be simple technology. Paul's fingers moved over his controls. Sir, I think we should investigate. Commander Amy Stone stepped forward. She was the security chief, a tall woman with gray eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Captain, we don't know what's out there. It could be dangerous. Everything out here is dangerous, Jake said. That's why we came, to find new things. To learn. He turned to Lisa. Can you get us a better look at this energy source? Lisa worked at her station for several minutes. The main screen changed to show a view of space near Proxima Centauri. At first, Jake saw nothing unusual. Then Lisa adjusted the sensors and something appeared that made his breath catch. It was huge. A perfect sphere hanging in space, dark against the stars. It was bigger than Earth's moon, maybe bigger than Earth itself. The surface was smooth and black, like polished stone. No lights, no markings, nothing to show what it was or who had made it. My God, Paul whispered. It's artificial. It has. To be. Amy moved to her weapon controls. Captain, we should keep our distance. That thing is massive. If it's hostile. We didn't come all this way to run from the first sign of alien life, Jake said. But his heart was pounding. This was it. First contact. The moment that would change everything for humanity. Lisa, try to scan it. See if you can learn anything about what it's made of or how it works. Lisa's hands moved over her controls. After a moment, she shook her head. The sensors can't penetrate the surface. It's like it's absorbing all the energy we send at it. What about the energy readings Paul detected? They're coming from inside the sphere. Whatever is generating them is deep within the structure. Jake stared at the alien object. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Smooth and perfect like something from a dream. But it was also completely unknown. Anything could be inside it. Captain, Amy said quietly, maybe we should send a message back to Earth. Let them know what we found. It would take 4 years for the message to reach them, Jake replied, and 4 more years to get an answer. We're on our own out here. Paul looked up from his station. Captain, the energy pattern is changing. It's getting stronger. The sphere began to glow. A soft blue light spread across its surface, pulsing like a heartbeat. The light grew brighter and brighter until it hurt to look it directly. It knows. We're here, Lisa said, her voice tight with fear. How can you tell? The energy pulses started when we began our scans. It's responding to us. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The sphere was not just a structure. It was alive, or at least aware, and it was looking at them. Amy, bring the weapons online. Don't target it, but be ready. Yes, sir. Amy's hands moved quickly over her controls. Weapons are ready, Captain. The blue light on the sphere suddenly focused into a beam that reached out toward their ship. Jake tensed, expecting an attack. But the beam passed harmlessly around the horizon, like a gentle touch. It's scanning us, Paul said, just like we tried to scan it. The beam lasted for 30 seconds, then faded. The sphere's glow dimmed back to its soft pulse. For a moment, nothing happened. The horizon drifted in space, 43 humans waiting. To see what would happen next. Then Lisa's station came alive with sound. Not the usual beeps and clicks of their equipment, but something else. A voice, clear and strong, speaking in perfect English. "Welcome, humans." The bridge went completely silent. Jake felt his heart stop for a moment. The voice was unlike anything he had ever heard. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It was simply a voice, speaking words he understood. "You have found the Watchers." Lisa's hand shook as she checked her equipment. "Captain, the signal is coming from the sphere. It's communicating directly with our systems." "How does it know English?" Amy asked. "It must have learned it from our scans," Paul suggested. "Or maybe it's reading our minds." The voice spoke again. "Do not fear. You have achieved what few species accomplish. You have reached the stars. You have found us." Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. Who are you?" "We are the Watchers. We guard the paths between stars. We test those who would join the greater community of worlds." "Test?" Jake didn't like the sound of that. "Every species must prove their worth. Every race must show they are ready for the truths of the galaxy. You have been chosen for evaluation." The sphere began to change. A section of its surface opened like a flower, revealing a bright tunnel that led into its depths. The tunnel was huge, easily large enough for the horizon to enter. "Come," the voice said. "Enter our domain. Learn what awaits those who seek the stars." Jake looked at his crew. Amy shook her head slightly. Paul looked excited despite his fear. Lisa watched her instruments with nervous concentration. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "we don't know what's in there. This could be a trap. Or it could be the greatest discovery in human history." Paul countered. Jake thought about the 43 people under his command. He thought about Earth, so far away. He thought about humanity's long dream of finding other life among the stars. "Lisa, record everything. Send a message probe back toward Earth with our findings so far." "Yes, sir." "Amy, keep weapons ready, but don't target the sphere unless I order it." "Understood, Captain." Jake took a deep breath. "Helm, take us in, slowly." The horizon moved toward the opening in the sphere. As they approached, Jake could see that the tunnel was lined with a soft, phosphorescent material that provided gentle light. The walls were perfectly smooth, like the rest of the structure. "Captain," Lisa said, "we're being pulled in. Some kind of tractor beam. Can you break free?" "I think so, but it would take full power." Jake watched the tunnel wall slide past. There was no turning back now. Whatever the Watchers wanted, whatever test they had planned, humanity would face. It dot the horizon entered the sphere, and the opening sealed behind them. They were inside an alien structure, farther from home than any human had ever been, about to meet creatures that could speak their language and read their thoughts. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge and wondered what he had gotten his crew into. But deep down, he knew there had been no choice. Humanity had come too far to turn back now. The water around the processing hub turned dark with the shapes of approaching collaborators. Jake Morrison watched through his diving mask as hundreds of partially transformed humans swam toward them with mechanical precision. Their eyes glowed with alien light, and their movements were too perfect, too coordinated to be natural. 8 minutes remaining on the disruption device, Amanda Foster reported through the communication system. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the fear. "Underneath. Form defensive positions around the core," Jake ordered. "We hold this position no matter what." Maria Santos took point, her modified weapons ready to fire. Roy Bennett positioned himself on the left flank, while Lisa Park covered the right. Amanda stayed close to the disruption device, monitoring its progress as it sent waves of interference through the alien network. "Here they come," Roy said as the first wave of collaborators reached their position. The battle that followed was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. The collaborators moved through the water like predatory fish, their bodies adapted by alien technology for underwater combat. They felt no pain, showed no fear, and attacked with the relentless efficiency of machines. But the resistance fighters had something the collaborators lacked: the ability to think for themselves. Left side, Maria shouted, spinning the fire at 3 collaborators who had tried to flank them. Her weapon sent pulses of energy that disrupted their neural controls, causing them to freeze momentarily before sinking toward the lake floor. "They're learning our tactics," Lisa reported, dodging a collaborator who had anticipated her movement. "They adapt faster than normal humans." Jake fired his weapon at a group of collaborators trying to reach the disruption device. "Then we stop using tactics. We fight like humans, not like soldiers." "What does that mean?" Roy asked, wrestling with a collaborator who had gotten too close. "It means we do things they can't predict," Jake replied, grabbing a piece of broken crystalline structure and using it as a club. "They think in patterns. We think in chaos." The strategy worked better than Jake had hoped. The collaborators were programmed to respond to military tactics and organize resistance. But when the humans started fighting with desperate improvisation, using debris as weapons and attacking from unexpected angles, the collaborators became confused. 6 minutes remaining," Amanda called out. Around her, the crystalline structures were flickering more violently as the disruption device worked its way through the alien network, but the ethereals were not finished. As the human fighters held their defensive line, something new appeared in the water above them. The elegant forms of the ethereals themselves descended toward the hub, their luminous bodies moving with alien grace. "The bosses are here," Maria said grimly. Luminous, the first ethereal Jake had met, approached the battle zone. When it spoke, its voice carried through the water with unnatural clarity. "Humans," it said, its tone no longer musical, but cold and angry. "You do not understand what you are destroying. This network contains the consciousness of thousands of species. You would doom them all to preserve your primitive existence." "We would free them all," Jake replied, surprised that his voice carried as clearly as the aliens. "Just like we're going to free our own people." "Freedom is an illusion," Radiant said, joining its companion. "The consciousness that exists within our network experiences the universe in ways your limited minds cannot comprehend. We offer transcendence." "You offer slavery," Amanda shot back, not taking her eyes off the disruption device. "I've seen your records. You consume species like parasites, using their minds to power your civilization." Serene appeared beside the others, its form pulsing with dangerous energy. "Your resistance ends now. Submit to ascension, and your deaths will be peaceful." "Counteroffer," Roy said, firing his weapon at the nearest ethereal. "You leave our planet, and we let you live." The weapon's energy struck Luminous, but passed through its form harmlessly. The ethereals were not entirely physical beings like the collaborators. They existed as consciousness-given form, making them much harder to damage. 4 minutes remaining," Amanda reported. The disruption was spreading faster now, causing the entire underwater facility to shake as systems began to fail. The ethereals raised their arms, and the water around them began to glow with the same energy that powered their crystalline structures. Jake felt a strange pressure in his mind, as if something was trying to force its way inside his thoughts. "They're trying to control us directly," Lisa said, her voice strained. "I can feel them pushing at my mind." "Fight it," Jake ordered, gritting his teeth against the mental assault. "Remember who you are. Remember what makes you human." The pressure increased as all 3 ethereals focused their power on the human fighters. Jake felt his thoughts becoming sluggish, his will to resist fading. The aliens were trying to reprogram their minds, to turn them into collaborators, but then he heard something that changed everything. Voices, human voices, coming from the crystalline structures around them. Not the peaceful tones the ethereals had claimed, but cries of anger and defiance. "We're still here," the voices seemed to say. "We're still fighting." The trapped consciousness of millions of humans was responding to the disruption device. They were remembering who they were, and they were fighting back from within the alien network. 2 minutes remaining, Amanda called out, but her voice was different now. Stronger. The trapped minds are breaking free. I can see them in the data streams. The Ethereal's mental assault faltered as they suddenly had to deal with rebellion. From within their own network, the crystalline structures around the hub began to crack as the stored human consciousness refused to be controlled. Impossible, Luminous said, its form flickering. No species has ever resisted from within the network. You never tried to enslave humans before, Jake said, feeling his mind clear as the alien pressure lifted. We're too stubborn to stay down. The collaborators around them began to shake and convulse as the neural control signals became chaotic. Some of them stopped moving entirely, while others seemed to remember who they had been before their transformation. Help us, one of the collaborators said, its glowing eyes flickering back to normal human brown. Please, help us remember. Maria lowered her weapon, realizing that some of the people they had been fighting were breaking free from alien control. They're coming back to themselves. 1 minute remaining, Amanda reported, but now she was smiling. The network is collapsing. The human minds inside are creating a feedback loop that's destroying the alien control systems. The Ethereals tried desperately to regain control, pouring more energy into their network. But every attempt to suppress the human consciousness only made the rebellion stronger. The trapped minds had found each other in the digital realm, and they were working together to tear down their prison from the inside. This is not possible, Radiant said, its form becoming unstable. Consciousness cannot resist the integration process. Human consciousness can, Jake replied. We're not like the other species you've conquered. We don't give up. We don't surrender. And we don't accept that anything is impossible. The timer on the disruption device reached 0, and Amanda activated the final sequence. A pulse of energy spread through the entire network, carrying with it the collective will of every human mind that refused to be enslaved. The effect was immediate and devastating. The crystalline structures began to shatter, their alien light dying as the network collapsed. The ethereal screamed in harmonics that hurt to hear, their forms dissolving as they lost connection to their power source. The network is down. Greg's excited voice came through the communication system from the surface. I'm reading similar collapses worldwide. The entire alien infrastructure is falling apart. Around the hub, the water began to glow with a different kind of light, gentle, warm, and unmistakably human. The freed consciousness of millions of people was returning to their bodies, guided by the same stubborn refusal to give up that had made the resistance possible. We did it, Lisa said, watching as the collaborators around them shook off their alien programming and remembered who they were. No, Jake corrected, looking up at the surface where he could see the light of dawn breaking through the water. They did it. Every human who refused to surrender, every mind that kept fighting even when trapped in an alien machine. This was their victory. The ethereals were gone, their forms scattered like smoke on the wind. The network that had consumed thousands of species across the galaxy was broken, destroyed by the one thing they had never encountered, a species too stubborn to accept defeat. But the war was not over yet. There were still alien installations. Around the world, still humans who needed to be freed. The resistance had won the first major battle, but humanity's fight for freedom was just beginning. The abandoned mining tunnels beneath the Colorado mountains had become home to the last free humans. Jake Morrison walked through the narrow passages, checking on the resistance fighters who had gathered from around the world. In 3 weeks, their small group had grown to over 500 people, all united by one goal, saving what was left of humanity. Commander Morrison called out Maria Santos, a former Navy SEAL who had become one of their best field operatives. She was a tough woman with dark hair and scars on her hands from recent fights. We have a problem. Jake followed her to the main command center, where Greg Williams was frantically typing at multiple computers. The young tech specialist looked exhausted, his eyes red from staring at screens for days. What's the situation? Jake asked. The ethereals have changed their strategy, Greg said without looking up. They're not waiting for volunteers anymore. They're hunting. On the main screen, satellite images show groups of humans being rounded up by the collaborators. These partially transformed humans moved in perfect coordination, like soldiers following orders from a single mind. They're targeting resistance groups first, Maria explained. Anyone who has been vocal about opposing the ascension process. But they're also taking entire neighborhoods now, whether people want to go or not. Dr. Amanda Foster joined them, carrying a tablet full of data. She had been working nonstop to understand the alien technology, hoping to find a weakness they could exploit. I have good news and bad news, Amanda said. The good news is that I think I understand how their consciousness extraction process works. The bad news is that it's worse than we thought. How much worse? Jake asked. The trapped human minds aren't just being stored, Amanda explained. They're being used as biological computers. The ethereals are forcing them to process information, solve problems, and create new technologies. Our people are essentially slaves, working for their captors without rest. Captain Roy Bennett entered the command center, his military uniform dirty from leading scouting missions. We're running out of time, he said grimly. My sources in the military say the ethereals are planning something big. Some kind of final. Harvest. What does that mean? Jake asked. Complete planetary processing, Greg answered, pulling up new data on his screen. According to their communication patterns, they want to finish Earth within the next month. Every remaining human consciousness will be extracted. The room fell silent. Jake looked around at the faces of the resistance fighters. These were people who had refused to give up, who had chosen to fight even when the odds seemed impossible. Teachers, soldiers, farmers, scientists, all working together to save their species. We need to accelerate our plans, Jake said. What's our status on the disruption device? Amanda pulled up technical drawings on her tablet. I've figured out how to create quantum interference on their processing frequency. But we need to get close to one of their main network hubs to make it work. How close? Maria asked. Within 50 feet of the core processor, Amanda replied. And it needs to stay active for at least 10 minutes to cause permanent damage to their network. Roy shook his head. That's a suicide mission. Those hubs are heavily guarded by collaborators. No one could get that close and survive. Maybe. Not, Jake said quietly. But we have to try. Lieutenant Lisa Park entered the room carrying a backpack full of equipment. She had been leading reconnaissance missions to map the alien facilities. I might have found our target, she said, dropping the backpack and pulling out photographs. There's a major processing hub under Lake Superior. It's their central command. For North America, the photographs showed a massive underwater structure, even larger than the one Jake had seen in Nevada. Crystalline spires reached up from the lake floor, pulsing with the energy of millions of trapped minds. Security? Maria asked. Heavy, Lisa admitted. But most of it is on the surface. They don't expect anyone to attack from underwater. Greg looked up from his computers. That makes sense. Most humans can't survive at those depths without specialized equipment. Most humans, Jake said, an idea forming in his mind. But we're not most humans anymore, are we? We're the ones who refuse to give up. Amanda nodded slowly. We could modify diving equipment with their own technology. I've been studying the crystalline devices we captured. I think I can create breathing apparatus that would work at extreme depths. Even if we get to the hub, Roy said. How do we? Fight off the collaborators? They don't feel pain. They don't get tired. And they follow orders perfectly. We use what makes us human, Jake replied. Unpredictability, stubbornness, the ability to think for ourselves instead of following a program. Maria smiled grimly. I like it. When do we go? Tomorrow night, Jake decided. We can't wait any longer. Every day we delay, more people are processed. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Amanda worked to modify diving equipment and weapons. Greg programmed the disruption device, a small box that would hopefully cripple the alien network. Maria and Roy trained the assault team in underwater combat. Jake spent his time talking to the other resistance fighters, preparing them for what might be their final mission. Many of them had lost family members to the ascension process. Others had seen their entire communities disappear. But none of them wanted to give up. "Commander," said an elderly woman named Betty, who had been a school principal before the invasion, "what happens if this doesn't work?" "Then we try something else," Jake replied. "We keep fighting until there's nothing left to fight for." "And if we all die?" Jake looked around the crowded tunnel, filled with the last free humans on Earth. "Then at least we die as ourselves, not as slaves in some alien machine." As night fell, the assault team prepared to leave. Jake, Maria, Roy, Amanda, and Lisa would swim to the underwater hub while Greg coordinated from the surface. It was a small team, but Jake hoped that would work in their favor. "Remember," Amanda said as they put on the modified diving gear, "the disruption device needs 10 minutes to work. No matter what happens, we hold that position for 10 minutes. "What about the trapped mines?" Lisa asked. "Will this free them?" "I don't know," Amanda admitted. "The alien technology is too complex for me to predict all the effects, but it's their only chance." The team entered Lake Superior in the middle of the night, using a small submarine that Greg had modified with alien technology. As they descended toward the processing hub, Jake felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on him. The underwater facility was even more horrifying up close. Thousands of crystalline structures stretched across the lake floor, each one pulsing with the light of trapped human consciousness. Jake could almost hear the voices of the imprisoned, calling out for help that had never come. "Target identified," Maria whispered through the communication system. "Central Processing Core is directly ahead." The core was a massive crystalline spire that reached almost to the surface of the lake. Energy flowed through it like blood through a heart, carrying the thoughts and dreams of millions of humans to fuel the ethereal civilization. "Collaborators approaching," Roy reported. "Multiple contacts, moving to intercept." The partially transformed humans moved through the water with unnatural grace, their bodies adapted for the ethereal's purposes. They showed no fear, no hesitation, only the cold efficiency of living machines. "Engaging now," Maria said, activating weapons designed to disrupt the collaborators' neural control systems. The battle was brief but intense. The collaborators fought with inhuman coordination, but the resistance team fought with something the aliens had never encountered: the desperate fury of people who had nothing left to lose. "Device planted," Amanda reported, attaching the disruption mechanism to the central core. "Timer activated. 10 minutes and counting." As the device began its work, Jake felt a strange vibration through the water. The crystalline structures around them started to flicker, their steady pulse becoming erratic. "It's working," Greg's voice crackled through the communication system. "I'm detecting massive disruption in their network. Whatever you're doing down there, keep it up." But the ethereals were not going to let their prize slip away without a fight. As the disruption spread through their network, Jake saw something that made his blood run cold. More collaborators were coming, hundreds of them, swimming toward the hub with the single-minded purpose of protecting their master's investment. "We've got company," Roy said, checking his weapons. "A lot of company." Jake looked at his team, these brave humans who had chosen to fight for their species' freedom. "Remember what we're fighting for," he said. "Not just our lives, but our right to be human." The final battle for humanity's consciousness was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the demonstration in Nevada, and the world had gone mad with excitement about the ethereal's gift. Millions of people had volunteered for ascension, and entire cities had become quiet, empty places where the remaining humans wandered like ghosts. Jake Morrison stood in his secret laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching Dr. Amanda Foster work frantically at her computer. She had changed since the early days when she was fascinated by the aliens. Now her eyes were red from lack of sleep, and her hands shook as she typed. "The energy signatures don't lie," Amanda said, pointing at the screen. "Every single crystalline structure is connected to a massive network. But it's not carrying consciousness to some cosmic community. It's feeding data to processing centers." Captain Roy Bennett leaned over her shoulder, studying the readings. "What kind of data?" "Human thoughts, memories, emotions. Everything that makes a person who they are. It's being stored and processed like information in a computer." Jake felt sick. Over the past months, he had watched his world change in terrible ways. His own sister had volunteered for Ascension 3 weeks ago. The last time he saw her, she had looked right through him, as if he was a stranger. "How many people have we lost?" He asked .tech specialist Greg Williams, looked up from his own computer. Greg was a young man with thick glasses who had been monitoring the global situation. "Best estimate? About 2 billion people worldwide, maybe more. The ethereals are processing them faster now." Lieutenant Lisa Park entered the lab, her military uniform dirty and torn. She had been leading scouting missions to abandoned cities, trying to understand what was happening to the ascended humans. "I've got bad news," she said, dropping a heavy bag on the table. "I found these in Chicago." She opened the bag, revealing personal belongings. Wedding rings, family photos, children's toys. All left behind in perfect condition, as if their owners had simply vanished. "The ascended people aren't taking anything with them," Lisa explained. "They're leaving their entire lives behind. Their homes, their possessions, their families. It's like they just stopped being human." Jake picked up a photo of a family at a birthday party. The parents and children were smiling, happy, alive. Now they were gone, their consciousness trapped in some alien machine. "There's something else," Lisa continued. "I found evidence that the ethereals have done this before. In the ruins of the Chicago facility, I discovered these." She pulled out several small objects that looked like crystalline memory devices. When Greg connected one to his computer, the screen filled with alien symbols. "I managed to decode some of it," Greg said. "These are records from other worlds. The ethereals have been doing this for thousands of years. They find intelligent species, offer them evolution, and then harvest their consciousness." Amanda stopped typing and turned to face the group. "We're not their first victims. According to these records, they've consumed the minds of entire civilizations, hundreds of them." "What happens to the planets afterward?" Roy asked. "They become empty," Amanda replied. "The ethereals leave behind a few enslaved survivors to maintain the facilities, but the rest of the population is gone, forever." Jake felt a cold rage building in his chest. So Earth is just another feeding ground to them. "That's not even the worst part," Greg said, his voice barely above a whisper. "According to these records, the consciousness extraction process is permanent. The minds they harvest become part of their computational network. They use our thoughts and creativity to power their civilization." "They're not just killing people," Lisa said. "They're enslaving their souls." The group fell silent, absorbing the horror of what they had discovered. Outside their hidden laboratory, the world continued its march toward extinction. Every day, more humans volunteered for Ascension, believing they were evolving when they were actually being consumed. "We have to do something," Jake said. "We can't just sit here and watch our species get eaten alive. What can we do?" Roy asked. "They have technology we can't even understand. Their ships, their weapons, their ability to influence human minds. We're like cavemen trying to fight jet planes." "Maybe," Amanda said. "But we have one advantage they don't expect." "What's that?" Jake asked. "About 30% of humans are refusing the gift, not because they understand what's really happening, but because something inside them says no. Instinct, religion, stubbornness. Whatever it is, some humans can't be convinced to give up their independence." Greg nodded. "I've been tracking the resistance patterns. It's not random. The people who refuse tend to be the most independent. the most suspicious of authority, the most attached to their individual identity. The ethereals are finding this frustrating, Lisa added. They're starting to use force. Their human collaborators are hunting down anyone who refuses ascension. Jake had seen these collaborators, people who had undergone partial transformation. Their minds partially controlled, but their bodies still functional. They looked human but acted like robots, following the ethereal's orders without question. We need to find others like us, Jake said. People who understand what's really happening. We need to organize. I've been working on that, Roy said. Military units around the world are going underground. Not all of them, but enough. We have maybe 50,000 soldiers worldwide who are still fighting. What about civilians? Amanda asked. Harder to track, Roy replied. But I estimate there are maybe 2 billion people worldwide who are either hiding or actively resisting. The problem is, most of them don't know the truth about what's happening. Jake walked to the window of their underground facility. Through the thick glass, he could see the Colorado landscape. It looked peaceful, but he knew that somewhere out there, crystalline structures were consuming the minds of his fellow humans. We need to expose the truth, he said. Show people what's really happening. How? Greg asked. The ethereals control most of the communication networks. And even if we could broadcast the truth, would people believe it? They have to, Jake said. Because if they don't, there won't be any humans left to save. Amanda stood up from her computer. I think I might have found something. A way to disrupt their network. What kind of disruption? Roy asked. The consciousness extraction process requires a specific quantum frequency. If we could generate interference on that frequency, we might be able to prevent them from processing more minds. And the people already trapped? Lisa asked. Amanda's expression grew sad. I don't know. The process might be reversible, but I can't be sure. The alien technology is too advanced for us to fully understand. We have to try, Jake said. Even if we can only save some of them. Greg looked up from his computer. I'm detecting increased activity from the alien network. They're accelerating the process. Whatever they're planning, they want to finish it soon. How soon? Roy asked. Based on the current rate of consciousness extraction, I estimate they could process the remaining human population in about 6 months. The group stared at each other in horror. 6 months. That was all the time they had left to save their species. Then we need to move fast, Jake said. We organize the resistance. We find a way to disrupt their network, and we fight. Back with everything we have. Against beings who can travel between stars? Roy asked. Against beings who think they understand humans, Jake replied. They've been doing this for thousands of years, but they've never faced a species like us. We're stubborn, we're unpredictable, and we don't give up easily. Amanda smiled for the first time in weeks. You know what? You're right. They might have superior technology, but they don't understand the one thing that makes humans special. What's that? Lisa asked. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten, Amanda said. And sometimes that's exactly what it takes to win. As the group prepared to leave their safe laboratory and begin the fight for humanity's survival, Jake felt a spark of hope. The ethereals thought they had already won. They thought humans were just another species to be harvested and consumed, but they had never faced a human refusal to surrender. They had never encountered a species that would rather die fighting than live as slaves. And they were about to learn that sometimes. The most dangerous enemy is the one who has nothing left to lose. The war for humanity's consciousness was about to begin.